So this is one depiction of why epigenetics can be inherited. If the mother smoked during pregnancy, it can lead to heavier birth or overweight in the grandkid. It can pass on to the second subsequent generations. And who is going to be aware of this? It depends on the person's education, income, and career. All these factors, education, income, and occupation, determines where the person is going to live. And this determines who the person is going to mingle on a daily basis and what information, health-wise, the person is going to get. And this determines whether the person is going to be aware of the implications of smoking during pregnancy. Okay, this is what we mean by epigenetics can be inherited. So, if the mother smoked during pregnancy, and if this chromosome 15 is a long name, but we call them chromosome 15 is present, then the children or the infant in the fetus can develop nicotine dependence. And because of that, the fetus, when he or she is born, becomes a kid, then becomes a teenager, and then becomes an adult, can also develop nicotine dependence. And this explains why sometimes we can see some sort of intergenerational transmission of a given health behavior. And who is going to be aware of that? And a person's education, a person's income, a person's occupation, and the other opportunities being afforded to the person determine where the person is going to live, and determines who the person is going to mingle with on a daily basis. And the residence area of that person can also determine the nature of support system the person is going to get. And this can determine the health literacy of that mother. Depends on her education, income, and occupation, and other opportunities. And this determines where she lives, who she mingles with, and whether she's going to be aware of the implications of her smoking while pregnant on her future kids. And sometimes living in unstable home environments where there is abuse, mistreatment, or even incest, and so on, can also affect our stress hormones and cortisol levels. And this can also lead to cell loss in the hippocampus area. And this again will affect our metabolism and immune system. This can also lead to a loss in the bone minerals. And this can lead to our abilities to recall good memories. This can lead to a range of physical and mental health problems. So, our education level, our income level, our occupation, the type of job we are going to get, whether it's full-time, part-time, whether it comes with retirement and insurance or not, and other opportunities afforded to us. It is going to determine where we are going to live and the neighborhood we live in, directly and indirectly determines our support system, because the people we mingle with in that neighborhood can sometimes serve as our support system. And this can affect our stress hormones, how they function, and the level of our cortisols. So, if we live in a stressful neighborhood, high crime, not safe, polluted, this can increase our stress hormones and the cortisol level. This can in turn lead to cell loss in the hippocampus, and this will affect our metabolism and immune system. And this will eventually affect our ability to recall good memories, or we may also develop mental health issues like anxiety, depression, or even PTSD and other physical health problems. So sometimes kids living in certain neighborhoods, if they need to take the bus or the subways and that neighborhood happens to be unsafe, imagine what they go through. So this is one example of how the critical period model can be applied. When a person have no access to MMR vaccination, maybe that person cannot afford it. Maybe that person lives too far away from the hospital. For some reason, MMR is just inaccessible to that woman due to all kinds of reasons. And research has found that the woman who did not have MMR vaccination may have rash, swelling glands, swelling joints, or low-grade fever later on in adulthood. And sometimes these conditions may progress through the elderly years. And if a woman does not have an opportunity to have MMR vaccination, if she decides to get pregnant some point in her life, this may lead to all kinds of birth defects. The birth defects for women who have no chance of having an MMR vaccination is 20% higher than women who had MMR vaccination. And these birth defects can include deafness in the child, blindness in the child, cardiovascular disease in the child, or all kinds of retardation, physical and mental retardation in the children. And sometimes these defects can progress throughout the life course development. It can progress from childhood to teenagers to young adulthood to middle age and into the elderly years. And here are some examples pertaining to the specific period model and the risk accumulation model. Childhood or adulthood obesity can lead to coronary heart disease during the elderly, or hypertension when that person gets old. Sometimes, if that person was obese or overweight as a kid or during adulthood, that person have a higher risk of stroke when that person reached the elderly stage. And childhood or adulthood obesity can also increase the risk of gallbladder disease among the elderly. Childhood or adulthood obesity can also lead to sleeping problems. Childhood or adulthood obesity can lead to premature death or just a low quality of life in general later on in life. However, this example is more appropriate under the specific period model because, as we can see, the time frame for the stimulus, the cause to happen, it ranges from childhood to adulthood. And we have an indefinite beginning and starting time. So because of that, the specific period model is more appropriate than the critical period model for this example. But the risk accumulation model is also appropriate for this example, because oftentimes the risk factors may accumulate over time. So when the risk factors pertaining to obesity accumulates over time, this example is also applicable to the risk accumulation model. If that person continues to live in a poor neighborhood, in a bad neighborhood, where stores, healthy food stores, is almost inaccessible, there's a lack of transportation, and families in that neighborhood, parents, families, adults, they are constantly in and out of welfare food stamps. They cannot hold a full-time permanent job if these conditions accumulate over time. Maybe heart disease can increase in severity as the person or the children progress through lifespan development. Hypertension, stroke, gallbladder disease can become more severe as the person progresses from childhood to adulthood to middle age to the elderly. The same can be said for sleeping problems, and if all these risk factors continue to accumulate over time with no intervention, no prevention, the child, the adult, did not do anything, did not put in any effort to change his or her dietary habits, to exercise more, sometimes due to factors beyond his or her control. If these factors accumulate over time, this may lead to premature death. So this is how the risk accumulation model comes in to explain this phenomena.